Hey everyone, this is a short video about a very important topic, which is contextualizing your sources in oral presentations. My name is Dr. Julie Alexander, and I'm a professor in the first year integrated core, and I did match the purple text to my hair. Thanks for noticing. Let's go. So, I want you to imagine for a minute that you're giving a presentation, but you couldn't use a slide deck at all. And your presentation was required to be 100% oral. So no slide deck, no words, no pictures, no nothing. And this presentation included research. What would you do? How would you introduce, integrate, and document your sources? And that is one of the key things that you need to think about when you're preparing for your client challenge presentation. Even though you are going to have slide decks for the client challenge, and any other presentations where you might be integrating research, you do have to think about documenting all of that stuff orally. So, when you give an oral presentation, as I just said, and even if it does include slides, which your client challenge presentation will, you have to remember that your audience relies on you for the content of your presentation, but also the context. You have to give them the information that you yourself know, but you might not have included because you're already familiar with it. What I mean is, you have to document your sources in a way that's helpful for your audience. In the case of the client challenge, remember, it's a business audience that you're speaking to for the first time. So you have to give them information not only from your sources, but about your sources. Let's look at an example. So say this is a slide that we're using in a presentation. We've got some information on a slide. We don't have too much text. We're talking about a banking trend, lightsaber finance. We got some figures. We got a little bit of information about our source. But we want to make sure that our audience understands everything that's on this slide as we're speaking. So this is our slide, and let's think about what our oral delivery will be in front of that slide if we're in a presentation. We could say something like this: lightsaber financing is a big trend right now. Interest rates have gone up from 3.1% to 3.4% in 2016 and may go up to 3.9% by 2020. Well, you've given us all of the source information, but you're missing a lot of things. Where does this information about interest rates come from? How should I know that this is anything that is credible, especially if I can't see your slide? Don't forget that there might be members of your audience who are visually impaired. You have to document things beyond just the actual figures that are on your slide. So that gets a not so happy Drake. But imagine if you said this in front of the slide. Lightsaber financing is a key trend in consumer banking in 2018. As economist Kylo Ren of First Order University reported in the New Empire Times in February 2017, average interest rates on lightsabers have increased from 3.1 to 3.4% since October 2016 and are projected to reach 3.9% by 2020. This is important to understand because, and then you continued on with explaining why this point is important. There's a big difference between what is being said here in this particular thought balloon, or speech balloon, I guess, and the one above. This one is a lot better. This one gives a lot more context, and that gets a happy Drake. So let's break that down a little bit. What did I actually say? Lightsaber financing is a key trend in consumer banking in 2018 was the first thing I said there. And what that is my point or my argument. The next thing I said was, as economist Kylo Ren of First Order University. And what I said there is my source, where I got that from, who they are, and something brief that confirms their credibility. Because I could say, as Kylo Ren said, and you'd be like, who's that dude? Why does he have any authority to speak about lightsaber financing? You gotta give me more than that, especially if I'm not familiar with him. So something brief that confirms their credibility is really helpful. Next thing I said, reported in the New Empire Times in February 2017. So what that is where that data or that source information came from, who published it, and when. So we see it was published in the New Empire Times in February 2017. This assumes, of course, that your audience is familiar with the New Empire Times. And if they are, that's great. You don't have to give any more information. But if it's something a little more obscure, you might have to give additional information about what that is. So the New Empire Times, the leading newspaper about lightsaber financing, something like that. Now, the next thing I said, average interest rates on lightsabers have increased from 3.1 to 3.4% since October 2016 and are projected to reach 3.9% by 2020. That's the actual data. That's the actual stuff that came from the source. And I finished with saying this is important to understand because, and that is where I explain the data. Now, you might look at this and think, that's a lot that I have to say before I actually get to my data, my source, my research that I'm putting into my presentation. Yes, it is maybe a little bit more than you expected, but once you've really got this down, you can go through this in, just a couple of seconds, and it makes a huge difference in how your audience will understand what you're saying to them. Remember, your audience relies on you. Now, when you're giving a presentation, you got to remember, you're in a position of power. That means that you are the one who's delivering all the information to the audience. They rely on you for everything. And as Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. Again, remember, you have to acknowledge your sources when you talk about any point that your sources support. You got to always tell your audience what information, source material, but also the key details about where that source material came from, when it was published, who produced it, and why it's credible and important. That's key. So, use this information. Make your client challenge presentation super awesome by contextualizing your source materials, and good luck out there.